We've heard that word endowment several times in the Doctrine and Covenants. Most recently in section 95, when he is encouraging them to get this house built because he wants to endow them with power, especially these missionaries, these apostles that need to go out and take the gospel to all the world. They won't be able to do that without this endowment of power. So he needs them to get the temple built. He needs these sealing keys to be restored. The Lord wants this work to be hastening. And so he's encouraging them. Now, once they get the temple built and he can accept this holy house, then things move fast. And I wanted to help our kids understand that concept of an endowment, that it is a tipping point in your covenant path where you have an increased power and capacity to do God's will, whatever that might be. I think that's why missionaries receive their endowment before they go out to the world today. Sisters and elders, they go through the temple. In fact, hopefully many times, a lot of them serve in the temple during their MTC, that home MTC phase, so that they can get really familiar with this concept of an endowment. So if you go in the creative notes, I gave you some great links to understand what an endowment is and what it isn't and how it applies to us. But really what will help your kids get it is to do the object lesson. So this is how I'm going to demonstrate this for you. Basically, we're going to make a little boat that on its own can't do very much, but when it's endowed with power, it can do a lot. So you need to make your boat out of styrofoam. For me, I just took a styrofoam plate, but you could use like a takeout container, anything like that. You're just trying to create like a waterproof surface for your boat. You could probably use a kind of plastic. I just found that the styrofoam sort of helped it have some buoyancy. That was helpful. So just grab a cheap styrofoam plate. Then you're going to take the printable that looks like this. It has several different temples on it. This is the Kirtland temple. There's also a Salt Lake temple and a Drapewood temple, because that's my temple, that you can pick or choose. You don't even need to cut out all of the temples that are on the printable. Essentially, you're just making styrofoam temples. So if you want to cut out one of these little paper printables and then use it as a template for all of your temple boats, you totally could. Or you can let them have the paper on them and, be colorful, but it's totally up to you. So once you get the boats cut out, you're going to take a hole punch, just a standard hole punch, and you'll punch that hole in the middle. You'll also want to use an X-Acto knife to cut that little channel. If you see on the printable, there's a hole and a little channel. That's where the soap is going to go. So to start things off, when you get to class, if you're going to do this a few times, which I would recommend, you're going to want to bring in like a big plastic container because you're going to want a place that you can dump water into. You also want a good stash of water. So maybe bring in a few pitchers of water so that you can do this experiment a few times. But you're going to fill a baking sheet or a cookie sheet with like a 1/4 inch of water. It doesn't need to be much. And you're going to place your temple boat on the surface of the water. It should float there. It might just kind of move around a little bit. And then talk to your kids about how hard it would be to get that boat to go across. That you might ask them to just blow on it, see if they can get it all the way across the water. You could strategize other ways that you can get it across the water, like tipping the cookie sheet around a little bit. None of them will work very well. In fact, there's one way to get that boat directly across the water, and that is to endow it with some power. So you're going to take a Q-tip and some dish soap. Doesn't really matter the brand. I like using a clear dish soap just so you can't really see what's happening. But you're going to take a Q-tip or a skewer or something like that, dip it in the soap, and then touch that Q-tip to the water. You want to touch it right where that hole is on the temple, where that little well is, because as soon as you touch the Q-tip to that well, the surface tension is broken and that little temple boat will zip all the way across the cookie sheet. It's just this really cool effect. It's something that couldn't happen in any other way. The only downside of this object lesson is you really can't do it more than once or twice per pan of water, because once the surface tension is broken, it's a little harder to do it. So if you're doing many kids at once, you want to make sure that they're touching the water at the very same time. Or in the past, I've made something kind of similar to this where we did tracks on our cookie sheet made out of tinfoil. That helps them race each other across the cookie sheet, but you have a few different options. The idea is that you can show the difference. If you want to repeat the object lesson, just dump that water into your big plastic container, pour another pitcher, another 1/4 inch of water in, and you can repeat it over and over and over again. Let all your kids see what happens when a boat is on its own and when a boat is endowed with power. And then talk about the Kirtland Temple. That although the endowment today is different than what they were referring to in this time period, this is just the beginnings of these kinds of ordinances. We'll get a lot more information in Nauvoo about what the endowment should look like. And then it's continually adjusted to fit the time periods, but the ordinances and the promises are the same. The Lord wants to endow them with the power and capacity to take the gospel to all the world. And that's what I would encourage you to go watch Elder Razband. So on the printable, I give you these little QR codes that they're designed to be a little envelope so that your kids could take their temple boats home and demonstrate this for their families. So you're going to give them a little envelope. It has a QR code on the back. and they'll scan it and watch a video of Elder Rasband. He teaches about what it means to be endowed with power, especially in this day and age, what it looks like, how it's related to the temple. It's a short, maybe 4-minute video to help your kids teach this to their own families or whenever they take it home in a cool new way. So hopefully the combination of that video, seeing it for themselves on the water and repeating it at home will help them remember how much they want this endowment of power, why it's worth it to stay on the covenant path, how baptismal covenants are a great beginning, but they are at the beginning. The Lord wants to give them a fullness of power, a fullness of the Holy Ghost. He wants to give them more, and they'll find it in the temple.